Motherwell Football Club, I'm Andy Ross, and this is The Longer Listen. Today I'm joined by Motherwell Football Club manager Stephen Robinson. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me today.
No problem.
Well, during this first episode, what we're going to look at is the psychology behind your job at Fir Park. And what I want to do is start with what many consider the most important thing, and that would be results. I've often heard you say that you don't get too carried away with results, whether that be wins or losses. So kind of 4 days removed from a hard afternoon at Easter Road, how do you feel now?
Well, when I say I don't get too up or down about it, I don't show I get too up or down about it. Of course, when you lose football matches, it's horrible. When you're the manager, and until you're the manager, I don't think you ever experience the whole weekend's ruined. You usually take it out on those very close to you. I'm quite hard to live with if we lose games. But by the time you come back in again on Monday morning, Monday afternoon, by the time we get the players in, it's your job everyone's looking at you. Everyone's looking at your reaction, your mood. And that creates the whole ambience around the football club and the feeling around the football club from everybody, from the players, the staff, the support staff. So it's important that you come back in with a positive mindset. And I also think it's important that you put things into perspective. The expectations grow the more successful you are, the better results you get. But you have to keep reminding people of the perspective. We played very well on Saturday. Every football fan looks at results, as do I, of course, because I'm judged on them. But what you have to do is strip it right down over the weekend. I watched it back twice, and I thought we played very well. I'm going to watch it again because I wasn't convinced, because I thought, why did we lose? And there were certain aspects, of course. We didn't stay with runners. We didn't do some basic things of football. But the overall performance, our play, our patterns, the tactical side that we worked on, that they would leave two up top and how we cope with it, was very, very good at times. It was really good. So, you have to remember you can't win every single game, and you don't come in and throw everything out and, it's rubbish, everything's rubbish. Fans have to deal with that. It's rubbish or it's brilliant. There's no in between with fans, and that's their right because they pay their money. With me, it's different. I have to look at the real positive aspects and worry about the things I can control, which is making people stay with runners or taking them out of the team, one of the two, and improving and keeping the positivity of the good things that happened contrary to the result. And that's sort of how I deal with it over the weekend. I can always come back in with a plan. If we've lost, I'll say, what 3 things can we improve on? And what 3 things are you going to do that the players relate to and go, yeah, that we can do that. If you ask for things that they can't do, then, obviously they don't believe in what you're saying. But that's how we try to start the week. That's how I deal with losing. I try and get the positive aspects out of it. Unbeknown to most people, it's probably killing me inside to be positive, but because I take it as personally as anybody. And any of that rubbish where people say they didn't try, that's just the usual stuff that goes with results. They didn't try, they didn't run hard enough. We have stats, and I can assure you our boys run like you wouldn't believe. They work like you wouldn't believe. Sometimes they play better than others. They're human. They have a level of quality that sometimes can get exposed against top teams, and they make mistakes, and you've got to remember, none of them ever mean to. Nobody ever means to play bad, and that's how we try and deal with it and put a perspective on it, as I said right at the start before I started rambling.
That obviously presents an issue as well. You talked about individual errors being costly. Some players will react better to criticism than others might need an arm round them. Do you have to treat each case individually, or are you able to present it to a team as a whole?
I try and not get personal with it. I think the modern player, you talk about psychology, football's changed massively. The psychology of dealing with a young player now, any player, but especially young players, they cannot take criticism. They can't take anything negative. They want instant success. And so you have to be very careful how you deal with that. You obviously have to deal with it, because if people keep making the same mistakes again, you have to take them out of the team. But I try and do it as a collective after the game. I don't usually go for individuals unless, it's a real glaring error or something we've worked on that they haven't done. That's what frustrates me more. If it's something we've done and worked on and they haven't carried out the instruction from a set play, etc. Then sometimes you do, but you try not to get personal with them. It then doesn't become a tit for tat, in the dressing room in front of everybody. You always remain in control. But over the weekend, I scrutinise it, and I think, okay, I'll show you when we get in Monday morning. We have team meetings, we have unit meetings, example, back 4 meetings, and we have individual meetings. So some of the younger players after the Hibs game, I've spoke to, I've shown them their errors, I've shown them why, but also always give them an answer. If you just constantly criticise people without an answer, for me, it becomes pointless. And I've had the experience of many managers just telling you, it's rubbish, it's crap, not good enough. Why is it not good enough? So I think the better managers and the more successful managers have answers. And if you go away and think logically without emotion, you usually come back up with better solutions.
And obviously as well, on top of that, you've got guys that are perhaps finding their way in the game, and an error can set them back quite a bit, can't it? So you've got to kind of know when to put young guys in. I've taken an example of David Turnbull, who perhaps was held back despite the fact he'd come into that Partick Thistle game a couple of years ago and really impressed. You held off. Is it football and ability and the mentality? They both have to be there to be able to play with men, I guess.
I think with David's a very good example. We always fancied David as a player, technically brilliant, but when David first came onto the scene, David didn't stay with runners. He was more a number 10 who was very, very good on the ball and very effective. What you have to remember is when you're at Motherwell, and at the stage I took over the team, we were second bottom of the league, so you can't afford any kind of luxury. So we had to coax that out of David. That we knew he had that in him. We just had to get him to do it at a first team level, and he trained consistently with us. And so did Jake Hasty. People forget that. He went to Alloa and played games, yeah, but he was with us every single day. And we pushed him and pushed him and pushed him into training at a first team mentality. Giving the ball away mattered. Not stemming runners mattered. And it got to the stage where David became that good in training that I couldn't hold him back any longer. But I knew when I put him in, he wasn't coming back out. And you see the amount of times, and I've done it myself, where young boys get in the team. They play poorly. One young boy a couple of years ago I put in, and a very, very good player gave me such a hard time. And, it becomes a stage where, it was me or him at that stage. And I had to take him off, and he didn't play again, and I live with that and think, could I have done it differently to help him, because you want them all to succeed. But I think we've learned as a group of staff, me as a manager, that they have to be really ready to put them in. Sometimes your hands forced, of course, at a club like Motherwell, and we maybe do put them in a little bit before. But we've been I think very good at the time when we've put people in. I believe David was really ready by the time he became established in the team. Alan Campbell, before I came in, I think he played 1 or 2 games, and I dipped Alan in and out to start with until at the stage where, you're ready to go every game. You're, got that mentality, that drive. The same with James Scott, and the same with David, the same with Jake, the same with Chris Cadden, and make them regular footballers. But the mentality, you have to watch their mentality develop. As you say, a setback when they're not quite ready for that can really put them back. And a lot of times if we can control that, we try to.
There's a lot of other things you need to control as well. One thing I think that's quite interesting is injured players. Trevor Carson being a good example of someone that got a really unexpected life-changing injury. He's going from being a regular, both for club and country, to being on the sidelines. He's not managed to force his way back in as yet. But a guy of such talent, it must be very difficult to manage and keep his spirits up through, as I say, a life-changing ordeal.
I mean, as a manager, the hardest bit is keeping the boys out of the team, keeping them happy. I remember Michael O'Neill saying during the Euros, the people that aren't playing are the ones that we need to keep on board. We need to give a lot of love to. And you use Trevor as an example. Trevor is, such unfortunate circumstances that nobody is to blame. Nobody could control. And, first and foremost, all we wanted to do was make sure Trevor was back to full health, which he is. Nobody foreseen that coming. And Mark Gillespie, certainly, he wasn't happy to be a number 2, so we managed that situation. Mark got his chance, and, statistically, Mark has been and is in the top 2 goalkeepers in the league. So nothing Trevor really could do in the background was replacing Mark at that stage, because he was excellent. So that frustration that Trevor has and had, and it's really difficult. I've been there and I understand. They come in every day. Trevor's very, very talented. He's a number 1 goalkeeper, but due to circumstance, due to his illness and then the form of somebody else keeping him out, it's very, very difficult to manage. And amount of times me and Trevor have been in the office together, and it does get heated sometimes. But I love him to bits. He's a top goalkeeper, and I want the best for him. Sometimes players don't see that. They just think the world's against them and nobody likes them, and you have to try and reassure them. And sometimes they believe you, sometimes you don't. And everybody can't play. But to be successful, you have to have a good squad. And we have got 2 number 1 goalkeepers, very, very talented goalkeepers. And as frustrating as it is, you just don't know what's around the corner. You don't know when it's going to change. And, when you've got boys of Trevor's Lever, who's an international goalkeeper. It's very, very hard to keep them happy, and sometimes nothing you'll say will appease people, and they want to play football, and I don't ever begrudge anybody that, they want to be first team footballers. But I reiterate to our boys all the time, if you're at a football club that's in the top 6 at any national league, the SPL, in the Championship, in the Premiership, if you're one of 2 players fighting for a place, you're doing okay. Now, getting them to believe that and focus on that is hard. But we've got a good group of boys. They don't cause me problems. Yeah, they're frustrated at times. They have their little days off where they're humping about and moaning. But in the reality is, I feel anybody would say, as a manager and as a coaching staff, we treat them all the same. And it was something I set out very, very early in my management career to do, because I had a spell where I wasn't in the team, and I watched people get treated differently. And then when the manager needs them, they're not available. When their minds are not available, they don't want to play for them. I would like to think the vast majority, when they go away and think about it, because they always hate you. If you're not on the team, they hate you. You're the worst person in the world. Their wives hate you. Their mums hate you. Their girlfriends hate you. Their boyfriends hate you. Whatever it may be, they don't like you. But when they go away and actually go, do you know what? All he done was not pick me. He didn't treat me badly. He didn't. I didn't make them come in on days when anybody else was in. I didn't make them train at 5:00. I didn't make them train on their own. We keep a really tight knit group. They only play in the reserves when needed, because we've got a set criteria when they play. And I think the vast majority of people who go away from here would think that, and that's why I believe we've kept a really good atmosphere, and we've been able to manage. Remember, I've been at the Euros and I've had to manage Kyle Lafferty and Johnny Evans and people, especially people like Kyle, who weren't playing. Connor Washington weren't playing. They're the hard ones to manage, because they're away for 6 weeks for their family. So you get more and more experience, than I've learned from very experienced managers.
And you'll know as well that could potentially have a very adverse effect on the dressing room, having disgruntled characters and guys that are just generally unhappy to be there.
You have two things in football. You have people who bring energy to the group, and you have people that drain the group. And I learned very quickly in management, you have to get rid of the drainers. You can't have choir boys. You can't have everybody who's perfect. But and we've got some characters in the dressing room as well. But everyone has to be pulling in the same direction. Once you get 2 or 3 that get together, and I'm very aware of that. I try and make everybody travel together. We eat together. We don't have our groups. Of course, there's people who are friendlier with others in every walk of life, but we try and make sure that people talk. We ban phones in certain areas so that they do speak to each other. And sometimes they might find out they're actually quite interesting outside of football as well. Probably not, but on occasions you do find that out. Now, I believe over the period I've been here as assistant and manager that we've created that, and we've got a good group of boys, genuinely good people who, you want to see do well.
Keeping on the track of distractions, players invariably will be, if they're performing well, attract attention from elsewhere. It's well known that Motherwell are a selling club. We try to bring on young talent and sell them on elsewhere. That's just generally what's happened over the years. Last season, David Turnbull attracted a great deal of attention. Jake Hastie was another. And the speculation kind of sometimes interrupted his game time. It seemed like his head was maybe turning. How do you try and get him on that path and get his focus onto playing for the football club at that time?
Very, very difficult. Very difficult. Young boys are obsessed with the internet. They read. I tell them all the time, do not read social media, but they do. Whatever way we dress it up, they do. They believe what people say. So when it's good, it's really good. But the same people, when it's bad, are the same characters and names that are slagging you off and saying you're the worst in the world. And Jake was a very hard one. I get on fantastically well with Jake. He's a brilliant young man. And it was really difficult because we had a player who I thought was a match winner for us. And it was very difficult to play him after that situation, because I knew that, he was going to get a little bit of stick, and I sort of try and protect them a little bit like my own kids at times, because they're human. They're kids. And they be getting stick and they be getting abuse. I thought, I'm going to have to try and take that and protect it. And we were 2-1 down. I think we were 2-1 down at St Johnstone, and I put him on. He got a little bit of stick, and everyone's got their feelings, and sometimes uneducated feelings on it, because they don't really maybe know what happened in the background. And Jake was a great boy who was given 100% for us every single time. And it was just unfortunate I couldn't play him in more games towards the end of the season, because he was a terrific player for us. And I'll tell you, I'd have him back tomorrow, and I would love to have him back, because he scored a lot of goals, and he was a really effective player. The way I look at it is, I try and win football matches. I don't have favourites. I treat them all the same, and I try and pick the best 11 that I believe can win Motherwell a football match. And you take any kind of politics out of it, whether you like them, whether somebody's you maybe have more of a conversation with them. And that's how I try and deal with it. I try and treat them all as individual human beings. And I think as fans, and sometimes I've got boys that age, so maybe I relate to it a little bit more. And one of them's in football and professional football, and I see his disappointment. I see when he says, "Oh, the manager spoke to me today," how much it means to them. So I try and not walk past young boys in the corridor. I try and know all their names and all the staff as well. And I think I'm quite lucky that I have boys that age and know how they react to things. So yeah, difficult to manage, but we did. And ultimately Jake got a move. We got good money for Jake. And he's at a very good club, and at the minute he's on loan, still making his way in the game.
You mentioned the social media thing. I think that's a very interesting one. You personally had Twitter, and I see you've kind of moved away from that over the years. There's been individual instances. I think of James Scott after the Celtic game last season, got a horrendous time, really, really personal stuff. David Turnbull, after the Celtic move collapsed in the summer, that can't not end up at your door or on your desk, and you've got to try and pick the young guy up and get his head straight.
It's horrible. I hate it, but it is a tool that is used in society now, and we're not going to get rid of it. But people now think they can put things in writing, and I would say quite a lot of it's very uneducated ramblings that they put on there. And the problem is when it's put in writing, it's believed. People believe it. And anybody that's sitting on a fence about an opinion, when it's seen in writing and they go, well, maybe that's right, and it grows arms and legs. And I find the people that write the good things you're doing really well is, a vast majority of them are writing the bad things as well. So I try and say to the boys, don't let them into your head. Don't give people a platform in your life to read this kind of stuff. Don't let them affect you. And that's why I say to them, it will affect you. You're human. And I don't care what anybody says. I came away from social media a long time ago. There may have been an account somewhere, but I can assure you it wasn't active. As soon as I came into management, my two boys had death threats on Boxing Day when I was manager at Oldham. Yes, and it turned out to be an absolute load of rubbish from a young man who made a mistake. And again, I've got young kids, so I forgive and forget very quickly. But it did affect my younger boy. He was quite frightened at the time. And, my family were quite scared at the time. You think, is football worth it? And it does put doubts into your mind. So, from that point of view, I came away from it completely because I vowed never to let people like that have an influence on my life or my family's life. And with players, I try and say to them, stay away from it, but they don't, and they're not going to. And, I don't know how we change that. People have a right for opinions, but if you don't read it, it doesn't affect you. So I try now when people are saying I'm a really good manager and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm going to this club and that club and the next job that comes up in Tesco's, I'm 6-4 favourite for. If you don't read that, you don't believe it. And the same way when the bad stuff comes, and there was plenty of it at times, I don't let it influence my mind because I genuinely believe it influences your decision making. And if you're a player, it will influence your decision making, good or bad. You think you're better than what you are. You stop doing the things that made you very good. You stop working as hard and doing the basics that made you a good player. Or if it's negative, it plays on your mind. Young boys, and their mind is active. They read into things. They get depressed with it, and you then can't express yourself the same way because you don't want to make a mistake and be open to that criticism. So the best answer to it is don't read it. Don't read it at all, and don't allow people who usually have an uneducated view and think if they put it in writing they can have an effect. Don't let them influence your life.
Hey, how does the offer of free beer sound to you? Yes, free beer. Thanks to our friends at beer52.com, you have the opportunity to sip 8 free exclusive craft beers from around the world. All you need to do is go to beer52.com/MFC, pay the postage, and what's more, you'll get 2 extra free beers, so that's a total of 10 free beers. beer52.com/MFC.
I'm going to move on to recruitment and the link to team spirit as well in the dressing room. What you look for in a player and your approach to recruitment is quite well documented. Yourself and Martin Foyle don't seem to leave any stone unturned when it comes to looking for a player. But it's also mentioned as well that you do your homework on the personalities you're bringing to the football club. I guess that ties in quite nicely with not having those drainers in your squad, guys that can bring down the spirit, because you are on a yearly basis turning over the majority of your squad. So there's always a real risk that you could end up with back to 3 or 4 guys that really bring down the camaraderie and the vibe of the whole place.
there's always a risk of that. There's if you spend £20 million on a player, there's a huge risk. Obviously there's probably less of a risk if you're spending that kind of money. But in the market we shop in, League Two clubs pay more money than us. Half the conference pays more money than us. I would say probably 70% of the SPL plays more money than us. So we have to really dig deep with things. And I've just absolutely slaughtered social media, but our head of recruitment and our analysts, they do dig deep, and you'll be surprised what people give away on it, in terms of injuries, their personality. If you see a kid that's out all the time and every Saturday night he's partying, and he's drinking, or he's, whatever it may be, we do delve deep into it. And I'm lucky I played a lot of my career in England, where we get quite a few players from, and I can pick up the phone to people, and it will never be we'll sign somebody on a whim. Martin will have watched them at least 2 or 3 times before he actually tells me. I will try on every occasion to at least see them once live. Y-Scout and modern technology allows us to look at their footballing ability, on a regular basis, and scrutinise it. Unbelievable scrutinisation. And then I have pre-request me as a manager what I want. Pace is my first and foremost in recruitment, because I think you can teach people positioning. You can make them better at positioning. You can make them have a better understanding of the game and the way we work. And the way we work now, we've got pre-programmed movements. People know where they should be, where they shouldn't be. They don't always do it, but they know where they're trying to be. But you can't make anybody quicker. And I think pace scares the life out of people. So the first pre-request is that. And then it's a mentality. They can have all the ability in the world, but if their mentality is they're not willing to work, and that's the hardest bit to find out, because I've signed players, and of course we've made mistakes with the level we're working at. Of course we have. But I would never not sign any of the players that I've signed. Some of them haven't worked, and some of them have been mistakes in hindsight. But based on have you got pace, or have they got a certain quality, I think, yeah, that's going to be good for Motherwell Football Club. That's going to fit into what we do. What you can't give is drive and mentality, and it's hard to figure that out. You can speak to people and they can say, yes, he's got that, he's got this, and usually we've got it more right than we've got wrong in terms of that. But there's a couple that I've signed, and I look and think, would I sign them again? Of course. A tremendous ability, played at incredible levels, played international football, but if they don't have the drive and desire to be a footballer, because I judge them when they come in, I judge them like my 18-year-olds. So if they're no better than the 18-year-olds that are coming through, I'll play the 18-year-olds. And sometimes that makes my younger players better. If we use David as an example, I signed Biggie, and I loved Biggie. He was a great boy, a good player, but it pushed David Turnbull to a different level. So sometimes people think signings don't work, but actually they work for other players to become better as well. So recruitment's the hardest bit of the game, and the most important by a mile. So it would be brilliant to have some money to recruit at a higher level and a more consistent level. But I think we do very well, and we have to give credit to everybody involved in it. As I say, Martin spends days and hours. We travel around the country to games. Our scouts do the same. Our analyst Ross Clarkson spends hours scouring Europe, scouring the lower leagues, and then by the time it comes to me, then we really break it down. He maybe give me the criteria I set. He maybe give me 4 players, and I'll make the final decision on, I want that one or I want that one. So ultimately, I get the blame. So it's something that I'm very big on, that if I sign somebody, it's my mistake or my success. And, if we don't win football matches, I'm the only one that's getting the blame. So I'm adamant when I go to football clubs, I say, do you do the recruitment? And that's not always the case. I'm in a very privileged position here that I have the final say on who comes to this football club.
And an observation of the guys that you bring in is quite a lot of them seem to have lost their way somewhat in the game, perhaps at a crossroads of their career. They've been at previous clubs and it's just not worked out for whatever reason. What makes you think you're the guy to steer them in the right path and get them back on track?
I think you're 100% right. I think we do sign players that have lost their way, so they've got a raw ability. I'll use Chris Long maybe as an example. Longy, when he was a young boy, people thought, oh, he's going to be the next best thing. Just maybe lost his way. Sometimes they make bad moves. Sometimes they get an injury. And that's something else we scrutinise, but sometimes you take a gamble with that. But have they got that raw ability, and have they got a drive? And I find them boys, a lot of them that we pick up, they've got that drive to succeed, and that's what our recruitment's been very much based on that. They've got a raw talent. Should it be they're a very good finisher, or they're really aggressive in the air, or they're technically brilliant, you can see passes. They've got that raw ingredient, And can you bring that out? Can you give them a bit of love? And you say, what do I believe I have to bring it out? I actually believe the environment and the staff we've got here, not solely me, allows them to bring it out. We've got incredible coaches, in Keith Lasley, Maurice Ross, Craig Hinchcliffe. We've got a fantastic strength and conditioning with Andy Bowles, and our medical department we're small, but I believe we're very, very good. And I think the environment that's created, we have a real coaching environment. We encourage people to express themselves. We're a football club that go, and sometimes as a manager, I'm like, flip, we're going to win 3-2 or we're going to lose 5-3. We are open at times, but we do try and get boys to express themselves. And even in Saturday's game against Hibs, we had so much the ball. We had a lot of, players were beaten, players we had 6 minutes of crosses that went into the box, 6 minutes on the footage. And that's an incredible stat away at a team of Hibs' calibre and at a place like, Easter Road. And I think that is what we're looking for. We're looking for boys to go and express yourself, go and have confidence in yourself. If you make a mistake, we're not going to absolutely punish you because we can't instantly replace you. We don't have the numbers. We don't have the manpower to do that. So, and I think a lot of times we've done that where younger players, they know that they're not going to get ridiculed or that's the end of their career when they make a mistake. And it's been an environment that we've created where hard work is the key to it. And I mentioned the sports scientists, and I've probably missed one of my staff, probably, but they're all people that work above and beyond what they should do. They do hours that you wouldn't believe. They travel places for me to watch players, maybe to pick players up. We don't have people that go and pick players up. We're grabbing, the chief executive's driving to take somebody to a dentist. That's how we work at the football club. Everybody does that, and I think it's paid off. There'd be times where we have bad spells because we have got young boys who have lost their way, and I think a reality needs as well is we do pick up boys that aren't playing football. They're usually not getting a game in League 2, never mind League 1. The only boys that we sign that are playing regular football are conference players, and that's just a fact. Nobody's really crying out to say, I want to come to Motherwell, I want to play at Motherwell. We're going to change your life with money. We're not, we can't. But what we have done, and I think it's been proven, is we've given people chances to resurrect their career. And if they can resurrect their career to an extent that helps us, it's a brilliant, brilliant football club to play for. Brilliant people that look after you. A board that supports realistic and a group of staff. And I'm talking support staff now, the people around the ground, the media people, the chief exec, the people who do the cleaning, the people in the offices and the chefs. Really good environment to play football in and work with. And that's not always the case. So for me, it's a fantastic platform for boys, and that's how we've been able to sell the football club.
After you've sold the football club and guys have arrived, whether that be the summer or the winter transfer window, you seem to stick with the same kind of tried and tested routine. I know it was Dublin this summer after a couple of years in Belfast, but the surroundings were described as very similar. It's generally Tenerife in January. Is that a process that you feel is tried and tested and works for integrating guys into the squad?
Yeah, I think we actually went to Dublin the first 2 years and then we went to Belfast this year. That was finances. My ex-wife actually got me an unbelievable deal at the hotel, so that's why we went there, and it was fantastic. The Denadri Hotel in Northern Ireland. I have to recommend it, or I'll get killed. But it was an environment that nobody disturbs us. We're there, we're on our own. The pitches are top quality, so you're there to focus on training. You're there to put the basics of the season in place in the pre-season trips, and really nail down what your style of play is going to be, what your principles of play are going to be. And that doesn't change. People get very mixed up with if you play 3-5-2, if you play 4-3-3, if you play 4-4-2. Your principles don't really change. We still want to play out from the back. We still want to get it wide, the players, whether that's two up front that are running down channels or two out and out wingers. Our principles don't change. Our midfield rotations, we want, our number 8's empty in play and getting beyond people. So that doesn't change in whatever system we play, but that's your chance to nail it down and integrate the new boys. We have a massive turnaround of players, which is unfortunate. I'd love to be able to combine the best of last year from Christmas with the best of this year. And I think would be a really good side. But, so we have a lot of turnaround, and it's a chance to get to know people. You're in an enclosed environment. They room together. They have quizzes together. There's no nights out. It's work. It is genuinely work. And the Tenerife one, in the last few years, the board have supported massively. And I think our runs after Christmas have supported the fact that we do it again, because I think we won 5 out of 6 and was it 6 out of 7 maybe the next time. So I think it galvanizes everybody because we had a tough spell. It brings everybody together again. It brings the staff together again. And it's a nice environment. It's warm. You can coach. UK players, for me in general, are not as tactically aware as foreign kids. And I think there's a real reason to that is numbers sometimes, because the country's bigger, you've got more people to pick from. But the environment, the training, when you train in the sunshine, you train in an environment where it's not beating down in your face and the wind's blowing at DL Park, people listen. They're wanting to stay out and do extras. They want to take more on board. So I think the two environments we take the boys to allow us to embed our ideas, and they're listening, they're taking on board, they're enthusiastic, and I think we've reaped the benefits of both trips.
It maybe sounds a bit too simplistic, but the first day in a job is always a kind of nerve-wracking experience anyway. Does taking the guys out of Fir Park and putting them in with the group that's already established, that must take a bit of the pressure off them as well as individuals. They've got to kind of sink or swim, but they'll get to know the guys a lot quicker, and that'll pay off. And it did pay off in January of last season.
Well, there's no choice because we can't afford double rooms or individual rooms. We go and we stay in rooms of 5, believe it or not. Now I'm painting a bad picture. The hotel is outstanding. It's no, but there's 5 their room. They're nice. They're sweet. So I'm making out they're not. But they've no choice because they're in such an enclosed environment, and we do try and split people up. And they all try and wiggle back in again. Trevor will try and get in with Peter, and they think I don't know, and the older boys will try and get together, and the younger boys will try to get together. But we try and keep them apart, and so they're mixing with different people and finding out that I always find if you find out a little bit about somebody personally and you can relate a little bit more to them, then when they're having a harder time, they make a bad pass, they're getting criticism from the crowd, then you see people being supportive, and I've always found to create team spirit. I think I've watched good managers do it. Michael O'Neill being the best one at it that I've seen in terms of creating a club spirit at international level, and integrating boys who were playing the Premier League for boys who were in League 2, from the SPL to League 1, and there was such a variant in talent and levels that they were playing at, and integrating everybody together. And I've taken a lot of stuff from that, and I think when you've got a harmony in a group, they'll fight for each other a lot more.
And your ability to be a reactionary manager has been very significant across your time at Motherwell. Just think of last season, where it was very difficult in the first half of the season. The second half, there was obviously the cup game against Ross County, but after that, the team didn't look back. Almost finished in the top 6 of the table, but playing a style of football that's carried on into this season as well. At what point do you realise that things have to change and it's time for you to react?
I think what you have to remember, first of all, is I came into the club, we were second bottom. So you have to play a certain style to stay up. And we done that, and we stayed up with the personnel that we had. And then you've got to try. So I got a lot of players out of the football club that I thought had either gone past their best or weren't beneficial to what I was trying to do. So when you sign the amount of players we signed on the money that we can pay them, you're not going to get what you wanted. I always wanted to play 4-3-3. It's my favourite system, contrary to what people think. But we didn't have the personnel. I couldn't recruit the personnel to play that way. So what you do is we were able to recruit Andy Rose, a big, tall, athletic boy who had a lot more technical talent than people give him credit for. We had strikers in Ryan Bowman who was ready here, where we had Louis Malt, boys that wanted balls delivered into the box, boys that wanted balls down the side of them. We brought Cedric Kipper in. We had Charles Dunn, so great pace to play a 3, and Peter Hartley in the centre of that. I think it was Ben Hennigan at the time, and we had to sell Ben right at the last minute. But we had 3 really good centre halves and 2 forward players who were a threat. And in Chris Cadden and Richard Tate, we had boys that were so energetic up and down. So it was sort of forced my hand a little bit because that's what was available to us and that's what we could recruit. So we were very good at that, and we got the 2 cup finals, which proved it. We were exciting to watch. I didn't hear anybody complain about that. We were in your faces. We did play more than people give you credit for. And I'm actually at fault for that because I played up to it. When the press asked me, I said, yeah, we were big. We were strong. We are physical. Things like the Bowie incident and, possibly Peter encouraging it as well at times in one of the press conferences, that grows arms and legs. And people then believe no matter what you do, you're a long ball side, you're physical, you're aggressive. And, you learn from that. And on the opposite of it, if you say you play football often enough, people believe it. And that's what happened. Now, when we came into the second season, we tried to change it. And we did sign certain players that we thought we could change it. I knew we had to evolve. I always thought we can't keep winning games playing like this. We've been successful and we needed to evolve. That we then which people chose to neglect or chose not to mention, was we had actually 13 injuries from, I think it was around about September to December. 13 first team injuries for Motherwell. That's a crisis. And I remember sitting in the stand, I was suspended for 5 games, deservedly so, I may add. And sitting with Stevie Craig and going, I have to change this in January. I need to get to January to change this. But we didn't have the personnel. We had 3 boys injured with concussion. We had a detached retina. We had boys with a tendon that snapped off, a hole in somebody's knee. Crazy injuries. And nobody mentioned that. Nobody thought about that at all. So suddenly I'd gone from being a decent manager to get the 2 cup finals to being rubbish. And the players had gone from being good to being rubbish without people really looking at the facts. And I think when you get tarred with the style of play that we had, some by our own creation and some justified, then your fans will turn quicker. And I know that. And I had to find a way. We targeted Bowley Arabi really, really early. We wanted that. Jake Hasty was a boy we had out on loan at Alloa at the time, and we always thought, because he was training with us on a regular basis, there's my 2 wingers. There's my 2 wingers straight away. And we brought players into that environment that we thought, right, I can get my 4-3-3 now. And we played it against Ross County, and it didn't work. But after that, and it gave us another week to work on it, or 2 weeks in Tenerife was like a mini pre-season. That was always the way I intended to go. But for all the pundits that sit in the stand and on their radio shows and in their studios, until you've actually sat in the chair and know what's available, it's sometimes very, very difficult to play a style you want to. And I think what I done was earn the right to have a bit of leeway. You get the 2 cup finals from Motherwell, which was unheard of. And then you get a little bit of leeway. And I got that leeway because I knew what needed to done. I had to do to stay up. I knew what we needed to do with the personnel I could recruit to be successful in terms of the 2 cup finals. And I also knew to stay on the job and longevity, you had to recreate yourself, and you had to recreate a team that I actually wanted to get in the pitch. So when that became available with Arabi and with Jake Hasty, then we knew what way we were going to play, and even in our recruitment going forward, we were already trying to recruit Sherwin Seedorf, Jermaine Hilton, James Scott. I believe he will be a very, very good centre forward, but he prefers being out wide at times because there's not as much contact and he's a little bit looser with things. So we knew we had these players coming through, and David Turnbull starting to, really progress. And, you have to remember, you cannot play through midfield if you haven't got the players that their A game is receiving the ball and playing. If you've got boys that are runners, you play to their strengths. If you've got boys that are technically brilliant, like David, Lightly and Polworth, Wee Allen's game has improved so much. Technically now I'm like, brilliant. He's worked on that. That wasn't always Alan's, A game, but it is now, and he's excellent at that. Liam Donnelly, technically very, very good. So we've got a midfield that, and that's not being disrespectful to the boys that played, because what they done was very good. They were very good at what they done. Andy Rose, Cormac, very good at what they done, and were technically better than people give them credit for. But it wasn't their A game. Now they were runners, and Paul Carr was aggressive in front of the back four, and we played to their strengths. Good managers play to people's strengths, because you don't stay on a job often if you don't.
We mentioned reactionary, and I credited you for being very reactionary. But how satisfying is it when the players take what your philosophies on board and it breeds results? That must be hugely rewarding for you personally.
It is when you see things come off. I think they don't mean to make mistakes. You have to remember that, and as a coach, I look at the Hibs game and I watched it twice back. So that's 3 times, including the 90 minutes. And I thought everything we worked on, tactically was very, very good. How we thought we could expose them. And sometimes, I remember a manager saying to me, they don't mean to make mistakes, so sometimes you can't win every game, and that's where I get a bit of perspective from. But yeah, of course, when we've worked on it and what we wanted to get to, it gives me a lot of pleasure now to see us play. I think I enjoy watching us play now. Obviously you enjoy more when you win, but I always think we've had a right go at that. We've had a right go at that. The Hearts game was the only game, the cup game, we didn't play, we didn't perform. But if you're coming to watch and you've got a realistic view as a Motherwell fan, and we're not going to win every single game. We are up against it at times. We punch massively above our weight, but I think we're enjoyable to watch. You can see we're coached, we're well drilled, we're trying to do certain things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
I think that's the refreshing element of it, that just now, I was there on Saturday, you're now really looking forward to the next game, because Saturday, while the result was disappointing, plenty of intent, a few things go your way, you get the penalty at the start of the second half, it's a completely different game. You mentioned the fans, and they react horrendously if we lose. They're top of the world if we win. How do you feel your relationship is with the supporters, and how important is a relationship with the supporters, given Motherwell are a fan-owned football club?
It's massive, absolutely massive. And listen, I think the vast majority of our fans are very realistic. They know what our finances are. They know the parameters. I think if some of them sat in my seat and you thought, I've got rid of 13 players this year, and we have to go and buy a medical bed from I won't even tell you where we bought it from, but you're on eBay trying to buy a medical bed. That is some of the parameters we work under. Nothing, and that's not me complaining because I know what it is and I've bought into it massively. But I think the vast majority of our fans are very realistic. They appreciate the coaching staff we have. They appreciate the players, and there's nothing better than seeing them get behind you and get buying into the players, not relationship. I think as a football club, I look at some football clubs and they go, there's no relationship between the fans and players. There's no connection. There's a connection here. I genuinely believe the fans see what we're trying to do. And as a fan, and coming from a working class background in Belfast, I think if you can see that players are giving you absolutely everything, which they do every week for me, I think they forgive you a lot quicker. And I think that's what the vast majority of our fans. Of course, there's an element in every football club that the moaners and the ones that have no realism and say ridiculous things, seem to always be louder, and that's the problem. So if there's one thing I'd say is the vast majority of our fans, they're the ones that really we want behind us and really supporting the team, because see, when they're an extra man. We are a young squad. They worry what the fans think. They worry about what they write in social media. They worry about if they get booed, and that hasn't happened many times since I've been here. And fans have got the right. They pay the money. They pay a lot of money if you go to a game, and I've got 2 kids. You take your 2 kids, you buy your programs, you travel up to Dundee or wherever it may be. It's a heck of a lot of money. So we certainly appreciate that. And genuinely, I really, really do. And I believe there's a connection between the players and the fans. I believe I've got the respect of the fans, and it certainly goes back the way from me towards them. I'm not one for mad celebrations. Every now and again I do, I get a wee bit carried away on the touchline, but I can't because I get banned every time I do that. But I'm not one to go and be every game and clapping fans and not, because I'm actually either raging or I'm buzzing from winning, and I want to go and sort it out as quick as I can. But believe me, I appreciate their support. And even on Saturday, I think it was nearly 1,000 people there travel across on a rubbish day, and long may that continue. And I think that I think when they see what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build, I think if you look at the position, this coaching staff, and believe me, this just isn't me, the coaching staff and the board, when we took over 3 years ago now, as I say, we were second bottom. We were massively in debt, owing people. We've cleared the debts. We've got the 2 cup finals. The club has got a team to be proud of, a team that is quite exciting, and assets. I think we've created assets, and I think people see that, and I'm sure we'll have their support. And they're realistic with when there is a little downturn, that they'll still support you. Don't suddenly become a bad player or a bad manager. And I think that's a bigger thing I've found. The vast majority of fans have continually supported me throughout.
Whether it be Netflix documentaries or Amazon documentaries, I think we see behind the scenes a lot more at football clubs now, and perhaps people kind of think they're a bit of an expert when it comes to that. But how do you get away from football? You've mentioned your 2 kids. Harry's at Crusaders on loan from Oldham just now. How do you kind of wind down from football? It seems very much all-consuming at times.
It's difficult. I remember thinking when Mark was in the job, I thought, I can do this. This is easy. Do you know what I mean? You think you're doing a lot. And I remember Mark McGee saying to me, till you sit in this chair, you have not got a clue. And it's true, because it takes over your life. When we lose on a Saturday, the coaching staff, of course, we're devastated. But as an assistant manager and a coach, you can get on with your life. As a manager, it's all consuming. It does take over your every thought. You take it out on people that are very close to you. You don't want to speak to people. You want to go into hibernation. You cannot think of anything but how do I correct that? And if you win, you enjoy it for 20 minutes in your office afterwards. And the next thing is, who's fit for next week? What formation are we playing? What's the opposition? Roscoe, the analyst, I'm on the phone on a Saturday night straight away. So it's all consuming. But listen, I have ways, I go cycling a lot. I do. I like my cycling. I put my phone in my pocket only for maps because I get lost a lot. And I go out in the roads and cycle. And it is my way of getting away from it. And that coupled with a game of golf, then is the only way you can get away with it. But even when I play golf, I'm still looking at my phone, and that's my excuse for my handicap at times. But it is difficult. I think the more experience I've got at it, I do think you need downtime. When there is an international break, I used to go and watch games all the time. I used to go to every international game and go to every championship game in Scotland and drive down to England and see games. Now I try not to. I try and have that little window of that weekend and go, no, I'm going to go away. I'm going to take down time. I'm not going to try and be on my phone to Martin seeing who the next player is. And you come back refreshed because staff get tired, managers get drained. And I reiterate that to my staff as well. You need a break away from football. And you try and come back refreshed all the time.
You've had a lot of praise for your staff. Do you have to delegate? You've got to learn to not try and oversee every single task at the football club.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's not in my nature to delegate. I have learned, but I think the only way you learn is when you surround yourself with people that you trust impeccably. And it did take a while for me to get to that. And I've got a fantastic staff now. You know, I know that when Keith takes a session or Mo takes a session or Dermot takes a session or, you know, Andy's doing the warm-up, Ross doing the analysis, whatever it may be, Martin Foyle takes the strikers on occasion. I know it'll be done to the best of their ability and what we have is a common theme. And contrary to what everybody thinks, that's not the case at every club. There's always agendas at football clubs and I don't think there's any agendas at this football club. Everybody wants to progress, but they all do it in the right manner and they all want to be successful and they all want to be successful doing it collectively. You know, and if Keith doesn't do his job or Mo doesn't do his job to the best of their ability, you know, it doesn't work. Everybody has to be on it at this football club to make it work, from the strength and conditioning to the physios to the chefs, everything, the kit man, everything. And I think that's what we've surrounded ourselves with here. And, you know, they deserve every bit of praise they get because the hours and the talent that they have, you know, very, very talented boys. And it's hard to keep them because we lose staff because bigger clubs that pay more money see what we're doing. And ultimately they sometimes come and take them. So we have to fend them off.
Just to finish up, you've achieved a lot in your time at Motherwell. The team are currently sitting within the top 6 in 4th position. That is the one thing, other than winning one of those finals, that has perhaps been missing, that top 6 finish. Is that something you're really keen to achieve at the football club?
Definitely. You know, you set out, my first and foremost is from, you know, my instruction from the board is make sure you stay up. So first and foremost, our budget, you go, we have to stay in the league. But of course, you know, that's what you tell the press and yourselves. But in our dressing room, we think we have a talented squad. We have a group of boys that are driven, and that is the ultimate aim. Can we get in the top 6? If we did, it'd be a fantastic achievement because, you know, we shouldn't be expected to get in there. We've punched above our weight, but ultimately it would be a great achievement for everybody at the football club if we can continue this run of form and continue to build on what we've done, because I certainly believe we've got the talent to do it. You need a little bit of luck. You need a bit of luck with injuries. You need things to go your way. And if that continues, I don't see any reason why we can't.
Stephen, I'd like to thank you for joining me on the first episode of the Longer Listen. For those that have enjoyed the podcast, episode 2 will be available in a few weeks' time. But until then, thank you and goodbye.
Brilliant, thank you.